When that woman walked into the restaurant and kissed my husband at our anniversary dinner, everyone expected me to break down. I was 8 months pregnant, betrayed in front of everyone. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Because I'd been planning this moment for weeks. And what I did next turned his perfect little affair into the biggest mistake of his life. Stay with me because this gets good. Welcome to Reality Stories Hub. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you are watching from. You know, they tell you that when your world falls apart, you're supposed to scream. You're supposed to cry, throw things, make a scene. But when I watched another woman kiss my husband right in front of me, while I was 8 months pregnant with our twin daughters, I just sat there, calm, quiet, and I picked up my phone. Let me tell you something. That calmness, it wasn't weakness. It was power. And before this story is over, you'll understand why that one moment changed everything. My name is Sarah Bennett, and I'm going to tell you about the night my fairy tale died. But more importantly, I'm going to tell you about how I rose from those ashes and became stronger than I ever imagined. It was our 7th wedding anniversary. 7 years. That's supposed to mean something, right? We were sitting at Giovanni's, this beautiful Italian restaurant in downtown Chicago. Same place where my husband, David, had proposed to me all those years ago. Same corner table with the soft lighting and the view of the city lights. I thought it was romantic that he booked our special table. Looking back now, I realized the man just didn't have any creativity. Should have been my first clue. I was wearing this deep purple maternity dress. Cost me way too much money, but I wanted to feel beautiful. Even though I looked like I'd swallowed a watermelon. Twins will do that to you. My belly was so big I could barely reach the table. But I'd done my hair, put on makeup, even wore the pearl earrings David had given me on our first anniversary. He barely looked at me that whole evening. I should have known something was wrong. For months, things had been off. David was always on his phone. Always working late. Coming home smelling like perfume that definitely wasn't mine. My best friend, Katie, kept telling me to wake up and see what was right in front of me. But I kept making excuses. He's stressed about becoming a father. He's worried about money. He's just going through something. I had an excuse for everything because admitting the truth meant admitting I'd been a fool. That night, David was nervous. His leg kept bouncing under the table. He kept checking his watch, looking toward the door. Like he was expecting someone. And then she walked in. Her name was Victoria Hayes. Tall, thin, blonde hair that probably cost a fortune to maintain. Everything I wasn't, especially at 8 months pregnant. She worked at David's financial consulting firm. He'd mentioned her once or twice. Just a colleague, he'd said. Nobody important. Isn't it funny how the nobody important people always turn out to be the most important ones in the end? Victoria walked straight to our table. Didn't hesitate. Didn't ask permission. She just reached down, grabbed David's face with both hands, and kissed him. Not a quick peck. Not an accident. A real kiss. The kind that says, "This is my man." Right there. In front of me. In front of the whole restaurant. In front of everyone. The entire place went silent. You know that moment in movies where everything stops and all you can hear is your own heartbeat? That's real. I could hear mine pounding in my ears. I could feel my baby girls moving in my belly, like they knew something was wrong. Like they knew their mama's heart was breaking. David froze. He didn't push her away immediately. And that hesitation, those few seconds where he just stood there, told me everything I needed to know. When he finally stepped back, his face wasn't shocked. It wasn't angry. It was guilty. Caught. Terrified. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't throw my water glass in her face, though God knows I thought about it. Instead, I looked straight at David and asked one simple question. How long? He just sat there, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Couldn't even look me in the eye. So Victoria answered for him. She actually sat down on the edge of our table, crossed her legs, and smiled at me. 18 months, she said. Still smiling. And before you make a scene, you should know he was planning to leave you anyway. I'm just speeding things up. 18 months. I did the math in my head right there at that table. 18 months meant he was with her when we found out I was pregnant. When we picked out names for our daughters, Emma and Lily. When we painted the nursery and argued about whether to do yellow walls or keep them white. When we went to ultrasounds and heard our baby's heartbeats for the first time. He was building a whole other life while I was building our family. But Victoria wasn't done talking. Oh, and I'm pregnant too, she announced, touching her flat stomach. 3 months. David and I are going to be a real family. You were just practice. Practice. That word hit me like a punch to the stomach. 7 years of marriage. 7 years of supporting this man, building a life with him. And I was just practice. David finally found his voice. Sarah, please let me explain. Explain what? I asked. My voice was so calm it surprised even me. Explain how you've been planning to divorce me right after I give birth? Because it's easier to get custody when I'm postpartum and emotional? Because, baby, I read your emails. I've known for weeks. His face went completely white. Victoria's smile finally disappeared. That's when I stood up. Well, hoisted myself up as much as a woman carrying twins can. I picked up my purse, excused myself, and walked to the bathroom. In that bathroom, with its fancy marble sinks and soft music playing, I made 3 phone calls. First call. Robert, it's Sarah. It's time. Execute everything we discussed. Robert Morrison was my lawyer. I'd kept him on retainer for 6 months. Not because I wanted this to happen, but because my grandmother taught me to always have protection. Always have a plan. Second call. Jennifer, freeze the accounts. All of them. And start the audit. Jennifer Park was my accountant. Sharp as a knife and twice as quick. Third call. Katie, bring the boxes. Bring everything. It's happening tonight. Then I washed my hands, fixed my lipstick, and walked back to that table with my head held high. David and Victoria were arguing in whispers, probably trying to figure out what I meant about reading his emails. I sat down, picked up the dessert menu, and said, since we're already here, I'm ordering the tiramisu. It takes 20 minutes to prepare, and I want to make sure I'm still sitting here when the real show starts. You see, this didn't happen overnight. And if you want to understand how a pregnant woman brought down a man's entire world with 3 phone calls, you need to know how we got here. Let me take you back 10 years. Back to when David and I first met. He was 26, working as a junior analyst at a small financial firm in Chicago, making barely enough money to pay rent on his tiny studio apartment. He had big dreams but no money to make them happen. No connections. No way forward. I was 24, running my own interior design business out of my 1-bedroom apartment. Nothing fancy. I'd do small projects, help people pick paint colors, rearrange their furniture, make their spaces feel like home. I loved it. Still do. We met at a coffee shop. Sounds cliché, I know, but that's really how it happened. He spilled his coffee on my portfolio, apologized about 1,000 times, and insisted on buying me lunch to make up for it. We talked for 3 hours that day. He told me about his dreams of starting his own consulting firm someday. I told him about wanting to design homes that made people feel safe and happy. We fell in love over cheap wine and takeout Chinese food. Back when neither of us had money for anything fancy. Back when it was just us against the world. David used to tell me I was his inspiration. That I made him want to work harder, be better, build something meaningful. I believed every word. 2 years into our relationship, David got accepted into business school. Northwestern, one of the best programs in the country. But he couldn't afford it. Not even close. That's when I made the biggest decision of my life. My grandmother had passed away the year before and left me her life savings. $200,000. It was supposed to be my safety net. My emergency fund. My protection. But David said it was an investment in our future. Our future. Not his. Ours. So I paid his tuition. Every penny. $200,000 so he could get his MBA and build the life we'd dreamed about together. While he was in school, I worked 70-hour weeks. Took every design project I could find. Painted apartments, staged homes for sale, did consultations for real estate agents. I kept us afloat while he studied. He graduated top of his class. Got a great job at a prestigious firm. Everything was finally coming together. 3 years later, David said he wanted to start his own consulting business. Help small companies manage their investments, grow their money, build their futures. It was a beautiful dream, and I wanted to help him make it real. So I gave him another $50,000. Money I'd saved from my business. Money I'd earned with my own hands. He said it was seed money. Enough to rent office space, hire an assistant, get things started. But that wasn't all I gave him. I introduced him to my clients. Successful people who trusted me with their homes, their personal spaces. I opened doors for David that he could never have opened himself. I made connections. I vouched for him. I built his reputation with my own. Everything David achieved, we built together. Or so I thought. His business took off. Within 5 years, he was managing millions of dollars. Had a team of employees. A fancy office downtown with windows overlooking Lake Michigan. He was invited to speak at conferences. Got written up in business magazines. People called him a rising star in the financial world. And me? I was so proud. So happy to see him succeed. I thought we were building our dream together. 3 years ago, we bought our dream house. Beautiful 3-story home in Lincoln Park. Tree-lined street, good schools nearby, perfect for raising a family. I designed every inch of that house myself. Spent 6 months planning every detail. The kitchen with the marble countertops and the big windows that let in morning light. The master bedroom with the reading nook I'd always wanted. The 2 nurseries I designed long before we even knew we were having twins. That house was my masterpiece. My heart and soul poured into every room. But David insisted we put everything in his name only. Not both our names. Just his. It's for tax purposes, he said. Estate planning. It's smarter this way. Trust me, Sarah. I know what I'm doing. I trusted him. I signed the papers without reading them too carefully. Because you don't expect the person you love, the person you've given everything to be planning your destruction. But here's what David didn't know about me. I kept receipts. Every single one. Every bank transfer I made to his business. Every check I wrote for his tuition. Every email where I introduced him to a client. Every document showing my contributions to his success. My grandmother didn't just leave me money. She left me wisdom. Sarah, she told me when I was just a girl, never let a man make you invisible. Keep proof of what you build. Keep proof of what you give. Because someday you might need it. I didn't understand what she meant back then. But sitting at that restaurant table, watching Victoria smile and David sweat, I understood perfectly. They thought they'd won. They thought I was just some pregnant woman who'd fall apart and make everything easy for them. They had no idea what was coming. The morning after that disaster at the restaurant, I woke up early. I made David his favorite breakfast. Blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup. Scrambled eggs. Fresh orange juice. I kissed him goodbye like nothing had happened. He looked confused. Relieved. Maybe a little suspicious. Are we okay? He asked carefully. I smiled. We're perfect, honey. Have a good day at work. The second his car pulled out of the driveway, my team arrived. Robert brought 3 associates from his law firm. Jennifer brought 2 forensic accountants. Katie brought moving boxes and packing tape. We had 8 hours before David came home from work. And we were going to use every single minute. The first thing Robert told me made my heart sing. That prenup David was so confident about? The one he'd had me sign right before our wedding? It was never properly notarized. The witness signatures were forged. Probably by Victoria, based on the handwriting analysis. That meant the prenup was completely invalid. Worthless. Everything we'd acquired during our marriage was community property. And since my money had funded his initial business ventures, I had a legal claim to a huge portion of his assets. The house. That was my intellectual property. I'd designed every inch of it. I had drawings, plans, emails, receipts for materials. Everything documented. The court agreed to let me stay in the house during divorce proceedings. David would have to leave. But that wasn't even the best part. Remember how I said I'd been paying attention? How things hadn't been adding up. For months, I'd noticed strange things about David's business. Numbers that didn't make sense. Returns that seemed too good to be true. Clients getting paid with money that seemed to come from nowhere. So I'd done something David never expected. I'd reported him to the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, the people who investigate financial fraud. Turns out I was right to be suspicious. David had been running a scheme, taking money from new investors to pay returns to old investors, inflating his success, cooking the books. It's called a Ponzi scheme, and it's very, very illegal. The SEC investigation was already underway. David just didn't know it yet. When David came home that evening, his entire life was packed in boxes on the front lawn. I'd changed the locks. Legally. With court approval. Robert was waiting to serve him with divorce papers, a restraining order, and notice of the SEC investigation. David's face went from confused to angry to absolutely terrified in about 30 seconds. "You can't do this," he shouted. "This is my house. My company. My life." I stood in the doorway, one hand on my pregnant belly, and spoke the truest words I'd ever said. "No, David. This is my house. Built with my design. On land purchased with my money. That company was started with my capital. And that life you were planning with Victoria? Built on lies, fraud, and really poor judgment. Victoria showed up an hour later, screeching about how this wasn't fair, how David loved her, how they were going to be together. That's when I told her the truth. Victoria, honey, you're not pregnant. Her face went pale. I hired a private investigator, I continued. You lied about being pregnant to pressure David into leaving me faster. But here's the interesting part. You've pulled this exact same scheme at 3 other companies. Getting yourself fired for ethics violations. This was just your latest con. The look on her face told me everything. She wasn't in love with David. She never was. She wanted the lifestyle, the money, the big house and the fancy cars and the comfortable life. She thought she'd found an easy target in a guilty man willing to blow up his life. But she picked the wrong wife to mess with. The next few weeks were like watching dominoes fall. One thing after another, crashing down on David and Victoria's perfect little fantasy. David's firm fired him immediately. Pending investigation, they called it. But everyone knew what it really meant. They were protecting themselves. Cutting ties before his scandal dragged them down too. The SEC froze his bank accounts. All of them. Every penny he'd made, every asset he'd built, locked down while they investigated his fraud. Victoria got fired 3 days later. Ethics violations. Having a relationship with a client's spouse. The firm's lawyers were terrified of lawsuits, so they let her go without severance, without references, without anything. And then they turned on each other. It would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. David blamed Victoria for everything. Said she'd seduced him, manipulated him, made promises about leaving me that pressured him into making bad decisions. Like he was some innocent victim who'd been tricked. Victoria blamed David right back. Said he'd promised her everything. Told her he was leaving me anyway. Made her believe they had a future together. Said he'd used her and thrown her away. Neither one of them took responsibility for the simple truth. They were both terrible people who'd made terrible choices. And now they were paying for it. I stayed out of their drama. I had bigger things to worry about. Like the fact that I was about to have 2 babies. And I was doing it alone. Katie moved into my guest room that last month of pregnancy. She didn't ask. Just showed up one day with suitcases and said, "You're not doing this by yourself." My mom flew in from Seattle. My sister came from Denver. They surrounded me with love and support and helped me get ready for my daughters. David wasn't part of any of it. And honestly, I didn't miss him. 3 weeks after that nightmare at the restaurant, I went into labor. 2:00 in the morning. Katie drove me to the hospital while timing my contractions and holding my hand at every red light. "You've got this, Sarah," she kept saying. "You're the strongest person I know." 12 hours later, my daughters came into the world. Emma Rose Bennett, 7 pounds, 2 ounces. Born at 2:14 p.m. Lily Grace Bennett, 6 pounds, 9 ounces. Born at 2:19 p.m. Perfect. Healthy. Beautiful. With 10 tiny fingers and 10 tiny toes each. I held them both in my arms and cried. Not sad tears. Happy ones. Grateful ones. Because despite everything that had happened, despite the betrayal and the heartbreak and the absolute destruction of the life I'd planned, I had these 2 perfect little humans. And I would move heaven and earth to protect them. David has supervised visitation rights now. 2 hours every other Saturday. In a facility with security and witnesses. He has to pay child support based on his previous income, which means he's struggling badly because he doesn't have that income anymore. Last I heard, he's working retail at an electronics store, barely making ends meet, fighting legal battles he can't afford. His lawyer is court-appointed because he can't pay for a private one. Victoria moved back to her hometown somewhere in Ohio. No job, no prospects, and a reputation that followed her everywhere thanks to the internet. Someone at the restaurant that night had recorded the whole thing on their phone. The video went viral. Millions of views. Victoria kissing David. My calm face. The whole disaster. But then someone else posted a follow-up video. Security footage from the restaurant's hallway showing me in the bathroom, on my phone, making those calls. Looking determined. Looking strong. The internet loved it. They called me the strategic queen. Articles were written about me. Blog posts. TikTok videos analyzing everything I'd done. And suddenly my design business exploded. Women started calling. Dozens at first. Then hundreds. They wanted to work with someone who understood strength. Who understood the importance of having your own space. Your own security. Your own power. I landed a contract to design an entire luxury condo building. 30 units. The developer was a woman named Helen Rodriguez who'd gone through her own messy divorce. She wanted every unit designed by someone who understood what it meant to start over. That one contract was worth more money than I'd made in the previous 5 years combined. My business grew. I hired assistants, rented a real office space, started taking on bigger and bigger projects. Hotels, restaurants, office buildings. Everything I'd dreamed about was finally happening, just not the way I'd imagined it would. 6 months after that terrible anniversary dinner, I ran into David at a coffee shop. Same coffee shop where we'd met all those years ago. Funny how life works sometimes. He looked tired, worn down, like the weight of all his choices had finally settled on his shoulders and crushed him. "Sarah," he said quietly, "can we talk? Please?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and I felt nothing. No anger, no love, no hate, nothing. "No, David. We don't have anything to talk about." "Do you hate me?" he asked. His voice was small, broken. I told him the truth. "I don't hate you, David. I just don't think about you at all anymore." And I walked away. That's the real power move, isn't it? Not revenge. Not making someone's life miserable, though watching karma work is satisfying. The real power is in moving forward, building something better, refusing to let someone else's betrayal define your story. People ask me all the time how I stayed so calm that night at the restaurant. How I didn't break down or scream or throw things. The truth? I did break down, just not in public. Later that night, after I got home, after all the phone calls and the planning, I sat in my bathroom floor and sobbed. Katie held me while I cried for hours. Cried for the future I thought I'd have. Cried for the man I thought David was. Cried for the betrayal and the lies and the absolute destruction of everything I'd believed in. But in that moment at the restaurant, in front of David and Victoria and all those strangers, I knew that falling apart would give them exactly what they wanted. They wanted me to be emotional, unstable, easy to dismiss, easy to paint as the crazy, jealous wife who couldn't handle the truth. So I refused. I stayed calm. I stayed smart. And I let my preparation do the talking. See, this story isn't really about revenge. It's not about destroying someone who hurt you, though I won't lie and say that wasn't satisfying. This story is about protection, about preparing for the worst before you ever need to, about keeping your own bank accounts, your own credit, your own paper trail, about reading every document before you sign it, about trusting your instincts when something feels wrong instead of making excuses. Most importantly, it's about knowing your worth. My grandmother taught me that. She'd been through her own bad marriage when she was young. Back in the 1960s, when women couldn't even get credit cards without their husband's permission. When divorce meant losing everything. She used to tell me stories about how she'd hidden money in coffee cans in the back of the pantry. How she'd kept her own bank book under a loose floorboard. How she'd quietly built an escape route while her husband thought she was just being a good housewife. When she finally left him, she had enough money saved to rent her own apartment and start over. That was revolutionary for a woman in 1967. "Sarah," she told me when I got engaged to David, "I hope you marry a good man. I hope he loves you and treats you well, and you have a beautiful life together. But just in case things go wrong, you protect yourself. You keep your own money. You keep your own credit. You keep proof of everything you build. Promise me." I promised. And I kept that promise. After Emma and Lily were born, I made some decisions about how I wanted to raise them. I decided they would grow up knowing their mother didn't fall apart when life got hard. That she stood up, fought back, and built something better from the ashes. I decided they would learn that being smart is better than being loud. That patience is more powerful than revenge. That sometimes the best thing you can do is smile, make a phone call, and let the consequences handle the rest. Most importantly, I decided they would grow up knowing their worth. Knowing they should never make themselves small or invisible for anyone. Knowing they should always keep their own power. The custody battle was ugly. David fought for more time with the girls. Said I was trying to keep them from him. Said I was poisoning them against him. But the judge looked at the facts. Looked at David's financial fraud. His affair. The way he'd planned to divorce me right after I gave birth. The way he'd tried to hide assets and erase my contributions. The judge gave me primary custody. David got his supervised visits. 2 hours every other Saturday. "That's it. Mr. Bennett," the judge said. You made choices that prioritized your own desires over your family's well-being. Now you live with the consequences. David tried to appeal. Couldn't afford it. The appeal was denied anyway. Through all of this, I just kept moving forward. Kept building my business. Kept being the best mother I could be. Emma and Lily are 3 years old now. Beautiful, smart, funny little girls who light up my world every single day. They don't really know their father. They see him twice a month in a supervised facility where he plays with them awkwardly for 2 hours, and then they come home. They call Katie, Aunt Katie, and she's at our house more than she's at her own. She's the one who babysits when I have late client meetings. The one who shows up with ice cream when the girls are cranky. The one who's been there for every milestone. My business is thriving beyond my wildest dreams. I just finished designing a boutique hotel in downtown Chicago. 20 rooms, each one unique. The owner gave me complete creative freedom, and the results are stunning. I'm writing a book too. About financial literacy for women. About protecting yourself legally. About the importance of keeping your own records and never making yourself invisible in your own life. A publisher reached out after they saw my story online. They think it'll help women who are going through similar situations. Women who need to know they're not alone. That there's a path forward. I also started a nonprofit. We help women in bad marriages plan their exit strategies. We connect them with lawyers, accountants, therapists. We help them document their assets, understand their rights, prepare for the future. It's called the Second Chance Project. And it's growing faster than I ever imagined. Last month, I helped a woman named Rebecca. She'd been married for 15 years to a man who controlled every penny. She couldn't even buy groceries without asking permission. He monitored her phone, her computer, everything. But she was smart. She'd been secretly saving money. $5 here, $10 there. Hiding it in a box in her mother's garage. Over 3 years, she'd saved $8,000. We helped her find a lawyer. Helped her document the financial abuse. Helped her plan her escape. She's free now. Living in her own apartment with her 2 kids. Starting her own catering business. Building a new life. That's what this is all about. Not revenge. Not destruction. Freedom. The freedom to build your own life. To make your own choices. To never let anyone make you feel small or powerless. It's been 3 years since that night at Giovanni's. 3 years since my world fell apart, and I had to rebuild it from scratch. People look at me now and see success. They see the thriving business, the beautiful home, the happy kids. They see the book deal and the nonprofit and all the external markers of someone who's made it. But what they don't see is the work it took to get here. The nights I cried myself to sleep. The moments of doubt when I wondered if I'd done the right thing. The fear that gripped me when I realized I was going to be a single mother to twins. They don't see the therapy sessions. Oh yes, I went to therapy. Twice a week for the first year. I needed help processing the betrayal. The anger. The grief for the life I'd thought I'd have. My therapist, Dr. Williams, helped me understand something important. She said, "Sarah, you didn't just lose your husband. You lost your story. The narrative you'd built about who you were and where your life was going. That's a kind of death too. And you need to grieve it." So I did. I grieved the marriage I thought I had. I grieved the man I thought David was. I grieved the future we'd planned together. And then I built something new. Emma and Lily are my world now. Watching them grow, seeing their personalities develop, being there for every first. It's the greatest joy of my life. Emma is cautious and thoughtful. She lines up her toys in perfect rows and gets upset if anything is out of place. She loves books and puzzles and quiet time. Lily is wild and fearless. She's always climbing something she shouldn't, always getting into trouble, always making me laugh with her crazy ideas. They're so different, but they're both perfect. And they're both mine. Last week, Emma asked me about her father. "Mommy, why doesn't Daddy live with us?" I took a deep breath and told her the truth. Age-appropriate truth, but truth nonetheless. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt the people they love, I said. Your daddy made some choices that hurt Mommy. So we don't live together anymore. But that doesn't mean he doesn't love you. And it definitely doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Are you sad, Mommy? She asked, her little face so serious. Not anymore, baby, I said honestly. I was sad for a while. But now I'm happy. Because I have you and Lily. And that makes me the luckiest mama in the world. She seemed satisfied with that answer. Gave me a hug, and went back to playing with her dolls. These are the moments that matter. Not the revenge. Not the satisfaction of watching David's life fall apart. These quiet moments with my daughters. My business continues to grow. I just hired my 10th employee. We've designed homes in 6 states now. Hotels, restaurants, private residences. Each project is a chance to create something beautiful. Something that makes people feel safe and happy in their space. The book comes out in 3 months. Building Your Own Foundation, a guide to financial protection for women. The publisher says pre-orders are already strong. They think it might be a bestseller. I never set out to be famous. Never wanted to be an internet sensation or a role model. But if my story helps even one woman protect herself, prepare herself, save herself, then everything I went through was worth it. The nonprofit is my proudest achievement, though. The Second Chance Project has helped 43 women so far. 43 women who were trapped in bad marriages, who felt powerless and scared and alone. We've connected them with resources, helped them understand their legal rights, given them the tools to plan their exit and build new lives. Some of them just needed information. Others needed financial help. A few needed safe places to stay while they got on their feet. Every single one of them needed someone to tell them, "You're not crazy. You're not weak. You deserve better." Last month, one of our first clients, a woman named Jennifer, sent me a photo. She was standing in front of her new business, a bakery she'd opened with a small business loan. The caption said, "Thank you for teaching me that starting over isn't failure. It's courage." I cried when I read that. Happy tears this time. Sometimes people ask if I'll ever date again, if I'll ever trust someone enough to let them into my life. Honestly, I don't know. Right now, I'm focused on my daughters and my work. I'm focused on building the life I want, not the life someone else wants for me. Maybe someday I'll meet someone who deserves my trust. Someone who sees my strength as attractive, not threatening. Someone who wants to build a partnership, not a power dynamic. But if that never happens, I'm okay with that too. Because I've learned something important. I don't need someone else to complete me. I'm already whole. Last month, I ran into Victoria. Random chance at a Target store. She was in the checkout line in front of me. She looked different. Older. Tired. Her blonde hair had grown out, showing dark roots. She was wearing a work uniform from some retail store. She saw me and froze. Her face went pale. I could have said something cruel. Could have made a scene. Could have reminded her of everything she'd lost. Instead, I just smiled and said, "Excuse me," and moved to another checkout line. Because that's the thing about real power. You don't have to flex it. You don't have to prove anything. You just move forward with your life and let the past stay in the past. David sent me an email last week. First contact in over a year. He said he was sorry. Said he'd made terrible mistakes. Said he wished he could go back and do everything differently. I didn't respond. There's nothing to say. Apologies don't fix broken trust. Regret doesn't undo betrayal. Besides, I've moved so far beyond that version of my life that his apology feels irrelevant. Like someone apologizing for something that happened to a different person. Because in a way, it did happen to a different person. The Sarah who sat at that restaurant table 3 years ago doesn't exist anymore. That Sarah believed in fairy tales. Believed that love and loyalty meant something. Believed that if you gave everything to someone, they'd treasure it. This Sarah knows better. This Sarah keeps her own power. This Sarah protects herself and her daughters. This Sarah builds empires instead of waiting for someone else to build them for her. If I could go back and talk to that pregnant woman at the restaurant, here's what I'd tell her. You're about to go through the hardest thing you've ever faced. Your heart is going to break in ways you didn't know were possible. You're going to question everything you thought you knew about love and trust and yourself. But you're going to survive. More than survive. You're going to thrive. You're going to build a life more beautiful than anything you'd imagined. You're going to raise 2 incredible daughters who will be strong because you were strong. You're going to help dozens of women find their own strength. And 3 years from now, you're going to look back at this moment and realize it wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning. So to everyone watching this, here's what I want you to understand. Protect yourself. Keep your own bank accounts. Keep your own credit. Keep receipts for everything. Read every document before you sign it. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong instead of making excuses. And most importantly, know your worth. Never let anyone make you feel small. Never let anyone convince you that what you've built doesn't matter. Never let anyone make you invisible in your own life. Victoria thought she won by taking a man who wasn't worth keeping. David thought he was smart enough to erase my contributions and start fresh with someone new. They both learned the hardest way possible that underestimating a woman who's been paying attention is the biggest mistake you can make. I'm not telling you this story so you can feel sorry for me. I don't need pity. I'm telling you this story so you can learn from it, so you can protect yourself before you need protection, so you can recognize the red flags before it's too late, so you can understand that staying calm and staying smart will always beat getting loud and getting emotional. My daughters will grow up knowing their mother stood up for herself. They'll know she didn't let betrayal destroy her. They'll know she built something beautiful from the broken pieces. And they'll know that being a strong woman doesn't mean never falling down. It means getting back up, dusting yourself off, and building something even better than what you lost. 3 years ago, I sat in that restaurant and watched my marriage die. I watched another woman kiss my husband. I watched my fairy tale turn into a nightmare. But I also made a choice in that moment. A choice to fight back. A choice to protect myself and my unborn daughters. A choice to use my brain instead of my emotions. That choice changed everything. Today, I own a successful design firm. I'm publishing a book that will help thousands of women. I'm running a nonprofit that gives women the tools to escape bad situations. I'm raising 2 beautiful daughters who will never doubt their worth. And David? He's working retail, living paycheck to paycheck, dealing with the legal consequences of his fraud, and seeing his daughters 4 hours a month in a supervised facility. Victoria? She moved back home with nothing to show for her schemes except a ruined reputation and a lesson learned too late. Karma didn't need my help. But I'll admit, watching it work was satisfying. The real victory, though? The real success? It's not in their downfall. It's in my rise. It's in the life I've built. The strength I've found. The woman I've become. It's in knowing that I don't need anyone else to validate me, complete me, or define me. I can do that myself. It's in looking at my daughters and knowing they'll grow up with a mother who showed them what real strength looks like. Not the kind of strength that comes from never getting hurt, but the kind that comes from getting hurt and choosing to heal. From getting knocked down and choosing to stand back up. From having your world fall apart and choosing to build something better. That's my story. That's my truth. That's my victory. And if you're going through something similar right now, if you're sitting there wondering if you should stay or go, if you should fight or give up, if you're strong enough to start over, let me tell you something. You are strong enough. You are smart enough. You are worthy enough. And whatever you're going through right now, it's not the end of your story. It's just the beginning of your comeback. Trust yourself. Protect yourself. Bet on yourself.